Welcome to the Making Money Personal podcast. I'm Liz, here with Kevin.
Hey.
And we're super excited for today's episode. We're going to be talking financial aid and FAFSA pretty much, right? So today's guest is Matt Wallace from Granite Edvance. Hi, Matt.
Hey, thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
Yeah, we're very happy to have you here. So one of the reasons we really wanted to have you guys on to talk about this topic is it's such a big topic, right? It's very important for anyone in high school who's interested in going into college, and even the parents who might be helping them, right, get set up for it. So we just want to take some time, let you share a little bit about how Granite Edvance helps people with this process. But before we start, share a little bit about yourself and your role at Granite Edvance.
Perfect. Hey everyone, so I'm Matt Wallace. I serve as Vice President of Education Career Pathways currently at Granite Edvance. Been there for almost 2 years. Actually, Halloween will be 2 years. So
nice.
Great place to work. Before that, I spent 8 years at Plymouth State University in their enrollment management office. So ending as their director of admission. So brought that experience to Granite Edvance. So kind of taking some of that understanding about college access and career programming and bring it to a broader level. So it was a really awesome opportunity that I'm pleased that I took and moved over. At Granite Edvance, I lead a team of 9 people who serve across the community, boots in the ground. We're embedded in almost every high school in the state, providing free programming on college access, financial aid access, career planning to students. We also work in adult ed centers, places like My Turn, and all of our services are free. So one of the core pieces that we do is financial aid. So I'm really glad to be here to be able to chat about that a little bit with you guys.
Yeah. It's nice to have people on who know financial aid, right? Because it's such a big, vast topic.
Right.
And there's a lot of legality stuff, a lot of ins and outs. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Did you want to?
No, I just support that. And I like that you had the perspective from being on the school side of it. So working for a school and seeing what's necessary from that and then being able to translate that to a broader audience.
I think the school that I came from, Plymouth, is a really good school because we work with people across every spectrum, right? Being a public university, we worked with a lot of students who their families are 4th, 5th generation college-bound students, but also somewhere between 30 and 40% of any given year were first-generation students. So students whose parents had not earned a bachelor's degree. So there's a lot of time spent just educating people on that pathway, saying like, okay, now I'm here. I know this is something I want to do for the next step in my life, but I have no idea where to start. So it was a really great eye-opening experience because I came from a family who had people who went to college. So it was kind of growing up that thing that I knew was in my future. If I wanted, my family didn't put pressure on me to say college is something we're doing. Yeah. But if I want to go, I had the support to do it. I had 2 parents who had done it, right? So it wasn't this like big mythical area. So it was really an eye-opening experience. I think really something I've taken into this new role.
Yeah, I currently have 2 kids in school, and I remember when my oldest was going into school, there's so much. There's obviously been a few years between when I was in school and my oldest going in school, and there's a lot you have to navigate. There's a lot of things you have to remember, not just about the financial aid piece, but just everything else on top of that. Right. So having people that advocate for you and know exactly what you need is a tremendous resource, and the fact that it's free is frankly amazing.
Did you have a resource like Granite Edvance available to you when you were looking into college?
So available to me, yes. Granite Edvance was the NEEF network at that time and was around, and I know some of my peers had used them. I didn't. I was like, it's really kind of interesting at the place I am now in my career, like helping students on those next step and then working in enrollment. I was the least involved student, right? Like coming out of high school, I applied only to Plymouth State. My entire decision to apply there was I knew I could snowboard like 70 days a year and mountain bike from my dorm room, right? That was it. Because I was like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, so that was my entire college search in a nutshell. So to see where I am now, like I try to advise people to not make decisions like I did. But so Granite Edvance NEEF was available, but I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants. But I had a couple older siblings who'd done the FAFSA. Like I said, my parents went to college, so they were kind of familiar with some of that like process. But the value that we provide is great for those people who don't have that or have a little more investment in their search process.
Right.
Very true.
Well, now that you're an expert in this area now, right, let's just talk about the FAFSA, right, and why is it important that students do it? And then what should they keep in mind while they're doing it?
Yeah, I think it's a big question. Something we see a lot is families from different areas just not understanding the different opportunities that the FAFSA opens, right? You see those first generation families who this process is new and they're saying, I don't really understand how the FAFSA fits in the process. But then you also sometimes see families from really affluent backgrounds saying, I don't think there's a benefit for me. And I think that's a misnomer. And we want to also close that gap for the first gen families who aren't familiar with the process. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. It's the way that the federal government can provide federally backed loans, which tend to have really beneficial interest rates, right? And it's also the way that the institutions that students attend assess financial need, right? So the FAFSA spits out, through gathering families' income and assets, right, spits out a number called the SAI. It's called a Student Aid Index. And that Student Aid Index is what institutions say, this is the amount that a family, in theory, can contribute. And then assess how much additional funds they could give for what's called need-based aid. So this is aid based on a family's income and financial profile. So without that, right, the public institutions, for instance, they give out merit scholarships, then they measure that need and close that gap to need with the SAI. So if you don't do that, you could still get that merit scholarship, but you could be missing out on a large portion of need-based aid that's not tied to academic performance, but is tied to your financial situation. And even more so at the three public institutions, right, UNH, Keene, and Plymouth, they have a program called the Granite Guarantee. So if you're Pell eligible, which means you have an SAI below, it's roughly 7,300, they will meet the cost of tuition for you, right? So if you don't do that, you're leaving money on the table. Right. Plus, you're then going to have to likely finance some aspect of your college. You're not having the federally backed loans that tend to have lower interest rates. So you're missing out on these kind of key components in the financing game. And we really want students to see all those pieces that are available to them. For those more affluent families I mentioned before, right, they might not get additional need-based aid at a college, right? So a family that's pulling a $5 million annual income, they might not get that need-based aid, but they're still going to get some federally backed loans that they can opt into or they can opt out of, right? That's the thing with the FAFSA. They're not going to, once you do the FAFSA, that's not when you guarantee that you're going to take those loans out. That's just opening up the potential. You can always decline the loans, which we see some people do at the community college as well because of the lower price tags. But for those higher affluent families, there's scholarships out there that require the FAFSA submission. So if you're hunting for a scholarship and you haven't done the FAFSA, you're not going to be considered. At Granite Edvance, for our scholarship, which we gave out $750,000 last year, we require the FAFSA submission, right? Because we need to be able to see that SAI, because SAI is part of our review process. So for anybody who's going to college, who doesn't want to just write a check for what they get after merit-based, meaning aid that you get for your academics or some sort of performance, right? If you're in theater or art, something like that.
Or sports, right? Athletic,
sports, yeah, at D1 or D2 schools. If you don't want to just be writing that check, you're trying to reduce what that check is, that out-of-pocket expense. FAFSA is a key piece for completing it.
Yeah. So don't write it off. Don't assume that, just because you're within a certain income bracket, you're not going to get anything, or it's not going to benefit you.
Right. There's some validity to the benefits reduce, right? If you're that family making $5 million a year, right, you might not want those federally backed loans. But if you are searching for scholarships, it's something you can do. And there's been some changes recently, which you can get into if you'd like. That
I was going to ask about that. Yes. Anything changed?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, we might have heard of the Better FAFSA rollout, which the name, I think, came back to bite the Department of Ed a little bit, because what they were rolling out was some substantial changes to the FAFSA form. And it really is, now that we're here 2 years later, substantially better. We went from 108-ish, don't quote me on that exact number, to somewhere around 35 to 40 questions, depending upon the family financial, and if they have mutual funds and own a business, that varies a little bit. But the big piece there is they started linking directly with the IRS. So you no longer have to type in all your income tax information. It just links directly into it. So it does two things. It makes there be less questions, You don't, for most families, they don't have to find all their W-2s from 2 years ago to submit that. It also makes less likely that there's an error, right?
Yeah.
If you think about typing in 60 questions that are all numerical, basically, you might have an error, and if you put an extra 0, that could have an impact on your aid.
Yeah. If you're like
right?
me, you could fat finger something.
Yeah, like I do that all the time.
Type it wrong and
or not hit send on a text message. Like that's my go-to thing. So the FAFSA has drastically changed. So it's simpler, it's faster. Now when we see a family who has like a pretty standard situation, right, when they're not having a small business or on a fishery or a farm, most people who are coming into us who have pretty standard tax situations, they're coming in, and we can get them in and out on FAFSA in about 25 minutes. Wow. So where it used to be hours, there's a lot less burden on the family from a timeline to do it. So when you think about, okay, it might have a diminishing return for an upper level income family, the investment to do it now is so much smaller.
Yeah.
So
I could see that could have been a hurdle in the past, right? Some people might be like, I don't even want to bother because it's going to take me so long, and they might just dismiss it at that point. Yeah. But now that it's more efficient and easier, I can imagine it's just a lot more of a joy to fill out for people.
So 2 years ago when the FAFSA rolled out, and there was a lot of things that were breaking as students were submitting it, and we saw nationwide like an 8% reduction in FAFSA filing. And that, when you think about that, that has an impact on like students' ability to attain their future goals. That gap this last year completely closed, and I don't remember the exact number, but like nationwide it's somewhere like 5 to 8% increase year to year. So that gap is closed, and they've made some changes for this upcoming year that's going to make it even simpler. So last year, you had to create what is called a FSA ID or student aid.gov ID.
I had to do that.
So when you did it, you had to do it, then wait a day or two for it to activate before you could do your FAFSA.
Yeah.
Right now, when you go in and create that FSA ID, so it's really important for those first-time families, if you have a social security number, it's going to validate instantly. So you go in, you create your student aid.gov ID, and then student can do their FAFSA.
Nice.
Is this because of the connection that also with the IRS, or is that a different sort of?
It's connecting to a different part of the federal government, Social Security Administration.
Okay.
So they just developed a bridge there. So if you have a Social Security number, they can link you directly there.
Nice.
And then the second part, which I'm curious if you had any fun experiences with, is the contributor invite process. So the contributor is typically a parent or a guardian. So a student had to invite the contributor.
Yes.
The form before, sounds like you have some fun experience with that.
My son, and I'll let you finish, but yes, when my son did it, I don't remember there being such a hurdle, but my second child, my daughter, that one I remember the process being as you described. So I'm grateful for the changes because I got one more coming up here.
Right. So the challenge with the contributor invite process has been that students have to know like parental or guardian name as it exists on their Social Security card. Right, so like my name is Matt, right? So, but I'm Matthew. It's my legal name. So if my son who's 4, so we have ways to go before we get there. But if he goes to do it and puts in Matt, that connection wasn't built. They also have to know my Social Security number and my active email. Right?
Oh my goodness.
I don't know my wife's Social Security number, like let alone like my parents. So they've made a big change to the contributor process this year. That now they just put in an email address for their parent, and parent gets a code. Much like, when you're logging into a new website, they're like, we need to verify it's you.
Yeah.
Now that you take that code and you go in, the parent, the guardian can go into the FSA website, put that code in, and it's automatically, you put in all your own information.
Got it. Awesome.
So those two things we think are going to really reduce the barriers for families this year. So we're hoping that families who might have heard from people who did the FAFSA 2 years ago that it was a nightmare are hearing that it's getting better and have some less apprehension going on the process.
I will let you know. I will follow up with you. I will say
that.
What I appreciate about that too, and what I think we'll see is that in my daughter's case, she was a late filer because she was not of FAFSA, but I think she was late filing on that one because she was trying to determine which school she was going to go to, and just through the process of trying to figure out that portion of it, and then she procrastinated a little bit, I'll say, and we'll put some of that on her, that waiting period and that time frame, having that reduction will be huge for people in every case, but in this case, that would have been helpful.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, that's another reason why we have you on, right? So you can share this and we can get the news out.
Yeah.
So people listening will know, okay, it's not going to be the end of the world.
Yeah.
It's going to be smoother. It's going to be easier.
Right.
Awesome. Well, at this time, I think we can take a quick break and then hear a word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back.
Triangle's Young and Free Basic Checking Account is perfect for students and young adults ages 18 to 24 ready for greater financial independence. Establish cash flow management and strong budgeting habits with a free debit card. Pay with the card or with your phone's mobile wallet for even more convenient payment options. There's no monthly or annual fee and no minimum balance required to maintain a Young and Free Basic Checking account. And with shared branching through the credit union network and over 25,000 surcharge-free ATMs nationwide, banking access is always within reach. Start your next financial journey with a Young and Free Basic Checking account. Get started today at trianglecu.org or visit one of our local branches.
Welcome back, everybody. We're talking with Matt Wallace from Granite Edvance. Hey, Matt. So we talked about FAFSA, general overview, financial aid 101. Filling out the forms, anything that's changed, awesome to know. But what does it come to? How do people prepare for it? It's one thing to do it, but what should they keep in mind as that time approaches for them?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think outside of just the FAFSA, there's a really important conversation for families to have leading into the financial aid season. And I think one of the biggest things that families can do to make the process go smoothly, from considering colleges like this time of year for seniors or even some really active juniors right now, and into that decision time around May 1st of senior year, is have a financial conversation, right? This is what's reasonable for our family. Because what the FAFSA is going to end up illuminating is how much each school costs. And you don't want to wait until you have the FAFSA, which then turns into a financial aid award, which we're going to walk through that process in a second, from the schools, for a student to have an idea of what's reasonable, right? So when I was an admissions officer, like one of the hardest things that I had was a student who would be telling me for weeks, Plymouth State's my #1 school. I'm coming here this fall, and then they get an aid package and their parents would have to break their heart. But if they had just had an upfront conversation about, hey, this is what we can contribute, this is what you're going to have to self-fund for whatever that remaining gap is, it could have really helped mitigate some of that challenge throughout the time. But as far as preparing specifically for the FAFSA, right, like I said, for most students now, the Social Security Administration and the IRS is linked directly in. So there's only a handful of basic questions that they should be asking. Those will be pretty self-explanatory, and it's a smart form. So based on one answer, it will tell you if you have to answer other questions. The one place that we see frequently that people have to prepare for, or it sometimes slows down the process, is if you have an extensive stock portfolio, mutual funds, or revenue that's coming into your family outside of your standard tax forms, right? Rental property, those sorts of things. Make sure you have the information from that handy, because you'll probably be asked some additional questions on that. And the other place is if you're a business owner. And this seems to be one place where the Department of Ed has been making some tweaks over the last couple of years to make sure that they're not penalizing people where they shouldn't. One of the big things with Better FAFSA that rolled out was they no longer there was a credit removed for people who had small businesses and farms. This last year they put that back in. So we're still learning the exact way they've re-implemented that. So if you're a small business owner, you own a farm, or now they added in fisheries. So if you own a fishery, make sure you have the detailed information for that, because there's going to be a threshold level of employees and annual income that you don't have to, if you have less than a set amount of employees, you don't have to report that income up to a certain level. So you want to just have all the information for that handy. Other than that, like I said, the form's a smart form. Because we're pulling in most tax information, most of the questions are going to be about if you've had any sort of income tax credits, if you've been on SNAP benefits, so things that people pretty much know, and they're not asking for a lot of information to validate it. A lot of it's a yes or no question. So making sure that you have that information. And I think the only other thing is to find out before students start the FAFSA who are contributors for them. If they're a dependent student, then they need to have whoever is their dependent caregiver, parent, guardian submit information, or if they're an independent student. There's a lot of nuance to that, but the good thing about that is on the Federal Student Aid website, there's 2 wizards that will help that. So basically, there's a wizard that says, am I a dependent student? And it'll walk you through a series of questions, and it'll tell you definitively, for the purposes of FAFSA, because there's differences between a FAFSA and different tax statuses, you're a dependent student, and we need this person's information to go along with yours to generate that SAI. And then if you're a dependent student, but you have kind of a complex family situation, right? Like, I know when I was going to school, right, my parents are divorced, and I have a stepdad, and I lived with them 50-50. So there was a little bit of conversation, like, whose information goes on my FAFSA form? There's another wizard on FSA that will walk you through that, right? Like, who do you spend most of your time with? Who is one family member declaring you on their taxes? There's a process that walks through on that. We could do like a 2-hour episode walking through all those pathways. So I think I want to just point you to the place that will help students determine that. And again, that's pretty easy to find if you just go to federalstudentaid.gov, click on the FAFSA button, it'll bring you right to those wizards. So I think those are really the 2 big things that people really need to be prepared for. And then know your resources if you get stuck, right? If it's something that is, I'm stuck on the form, I don't understand what this question is asking, please call us at Granite Edvance, right? We offer free FAFSA consultations. If you're one of those families that just starting something that like financially minded is like stressful, make an appointment with us. We'll sit with you and walk through the whole thing. If it's something that you get in there and you put in your social security number and it's saying there's already an account that exists for this, that is something you have to talk to Federal Student Aid about, because that could be like an identity theft.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, right?
That doesn't happen frequently, but we like people to know that, unfortunately, we can't help with that. We are a nonprofit that operates in the state of New Hampshire. We have no direct ties to the federal government, so we can't help with those pieces. Now, if you get an error, you have no idea what it means, call us. We can help you determine if you got to go to FSA.
And you can help direct people so that you can refer them to the department that can help them in certain areas.
Yeah, absolutely. But any trouble that you're having, we're happy to help. But if it's something specific to the social security number, I know that's
like we can't resolve this.
Yeah, that's unfortunately out of our bailiwick, right? So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense.
Cool.
I will say again, I was looking at the website this morning, and it is extremely comprehensive. What is available on there and all of the resources that are available for prospective students and probably even existing students, as well as contributors, as we'll call them, was really impressive. And the resources that are available, and again, because it's a nonprofit and all of it's free, it would be worth it, I think, to even navigate to Granite Edvance just to go through it and see what advantage you could take from that, because not only are there definitions about what things are, there's this stuff that we were sharing with us today was, I could see elements of that and just thinking to this morning that are available on there about what you need to do, when you need to file certain things. So
yeah, appreciate that. And we link to those 2 wizards for dependent and independent and who your contributor are right on our website too. And we have some other free resources that we can help people with. We have a Financial Aid Insider, which is like a 35-page booklet that is everything you need to know about the financial aid process. Those are free for families, so you can just shoot us an email and we'll get some in the mail for you. And then we have content on YouTube and different recorded presentations on our website that you're more than welcome to. We just really aim to be helpful for the students in New Hampshire.
It's a great resource.
Great. It was. Really was.
I know you talked about like the resources on the website and all that stuff. What's your preferred method of getting in contact? Is it a phone call? Is it an email? Is it just all of the above?
I think it's what's easiest for the family. Yeah. Right? We have an email, findyourdirection@graniteedvance.org. That comes right to the team that I work with, and that's a great way to have any questions asked via email. They can help schedule an appointment. Go right to our website, graniteedvance.org/help, and that's where you can find all those free resources, book a one-on-one appointment, whatever is easiest for families. There's no preference for us. We want to kind of meet families where they are.
Yeah. Cool.
One other thing I thought of that I don't think we touched on is the CSS profile. So the CSS profile is similar to the FAFSA, where it's a form that you fill out that helps schools understand your financial situation. This is used only by about 250 schools, and it tends to be those more selective institutions. The CSS profile goes deeper dive into families' financial situations, and a lot of times it's used in conjunction with the FAFSA. So it's really important to know that if your school that you're applying to requires a CSS profile, still need to do the FAFSA, because they normally use the information that comes out together. But the CSS profile takes like 2 to 3 hours to submit, and you're putting in multiple years of tax information.
Oh, wow.
So it just really peels back those layers even further, and allows these institutions to have an even deeper picture of families' really specific financial situations.
If you do the CCS profile and a particular school gets both, does it potentially mean that there is more aid available that would stack on top of what FAFSA would offer you? Is it the CCS kind of, because you said they're for very specific schools, the ones that do look for that? Would it what am I trying to say? Because you have the federal aid you qualify for, and then perhaps something unique to the school would be offered to you by your CCS profile.
Yeah, so I don't think it opens up the door to more aid.
Oh.
I think it's a deeper dive for understanding what that need-based aid that the institution is going to allocate.
Okay.
So the FAFSA, at a lot of institutions, they just take that SAI, and that's how they give that need-based or income-based aid. CSS profile is just another layer to help determine what that income-based, need-based aid is going to be.
Okay,
so
but it could open up other pathways to additional resources, or
it really depends upon the school.
Okay.
Most of the time, they take the data from the FAFSA, the data from the CSS profile that goes into an algorithm that helps them understand your financial situation, and then says, okay, based on this financial situation, this is what we're giving for need-based aid.
Gotcha.
And that's a separate form.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a separate form, different website. It's not a federally hosted form. It's a form that's run by the College Board.
Okay.
So the same organization does the SAT, PSAT.
So parents would see that as a separate, like its own. It's not like tied in with the FAFSA. It's its own thing.
It's a separate
Okay.
form.
Gotcha.
There's no
They've got to go
connection.
find it. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Most schools who have it will send you the link and all that, but
Okay.
there is oftentimes a fee somewhere. It's like similar to what a common application fee, so somewhere around, I think it's a little less than $50.
Okay.
But it is another layer in that financial planning process. And if a student has to go through that, we don't do at Granite Edvance, we don't do walkthroughs. Like, we won't sit for 3 hours and do the full filing on a CSS profile. But if students get to a place where they're stuck, we will happily help them on that. And we also have 2 webinars, and depending upon when this airs, because they're the first 2 weeks of September. So
this will be after.
Okay, then they'll be after. So when this airs, we'll have already run these 2 webinars, and they'll be available on our YouTube channel that do a deep dive into the questions and what it means on the CSS profile.
Is that link available on your website as well?
I believe
it
so.
is. I think it was right next to the FAFSA one. I think there was also a link for the CCS profile.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting low on time.
All right.
So thank you for sharing all this information
pleasure.
with all of our listeners. At this moment, we're going to segue into our rapid fire session.
All right, let's do it.
So this is just a fun game type scenario for you. Kevin's going to ask you 10 questions about yourself, and you just answer as fast as possible with whatever answer you have.
Yep. These are just fun things that help our listeners and us get to know you a little bit better.
Perfect.
So one I always like to ask, because I think it's cultural, but I find it interesting to hear people's responses, is, are you an Apple or Android guy?
Apple.
Apple?
I tried Android once and I went back.
I'll keep my phone in my pocket.
I have no judgment. So most of my friends are Android people, I feel like. So.
Yeah. Now, is the obviously the whole meme about the green bubble? I heard that's going away. I don't know if they've carried through with that, where they're getting rid of the thing that makes the non-Apple text messages green. So that's most people's
It's funny you
ire.
said that. I was texting my buddy this morning, who I know is an Android user, and it went through blue. So maybe it happened.
Yeah. There you go.
Heard it here first.
Next one, favorite hobby.
Right now, running.
Okay. You did mention snowboarding. Do you still do that?
Not as much. When I was in college, I snowboarded a lot. My senior year, I checked 75 days skiing and snowboarding.
Wow.
Now I have 2 young kids. Actually, I had a $200 seasons pass in college. Now it's like $100 a day. So we don't get to the mountain as much. We do a lot more cross-country skiing now.
Got it. Okay, next one.
Right.
Could be another controversial one. Dunks or Starbucks?
Neither. I love coffee, but I don't really.
So what is your coffee?
This makes me
place of
sound like a
choice?
snob, but I like local coffee shops.
Okay.
Hey.
So there's a place. I live in Center Harbor, so there's a place up there called Gusto. It's an Italian cafe. They make great coffee and pastries. If you're up there, definitely get there. I don't know. I feel like Starbucks and Dunks. No hate, but I just feel like it's always just a little watered down.
You're not the only person. We've had another guest on who's like, I only ever brew my own coffee, he said, because he doesn't like...
I'll definitely buy coffee.
Yeah.
But I guess if I had to answer in the binary, I'd say Starbucks, because I can get an Americano.
Okay. But I usually brew my own. But Gusto's?
Gusto in Center Harbor.
Okay, Gusto. All right, next one. AI, in or out?
In as a tool for research and with fact checking, right? Click the links, don't just believe what it tells you. And also, I find it really useful for coming out of a meeting, taking notes, wanting to like summarize them, right? So I'll put like my bullet points or stream of conscious thoughts. Like, you just clean this up into something that's cohesive. Saves me a little bit of time. I'm not at the point where I want like AI doing my coffee in the morning, or like I saw a Wi-Fi connected blender for sale the other day. I'm like, that's just a step too far for me.
Yeah. Yep.
No offense to anybody out there who loves their Wi-Fi blender, but I don't think I need it yet.
Wi-Fi and everything these days. Yeah.
Your smart home is too smart.
Yeah.
Follow up to that one. Have you ever used ChatGPT?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the AI I tend to use just because it's free.
Yeah. Free.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Free. All right. You mentioned this already. I said, are you into sports? You did mention running and skiing. Are you into any other sports?
I not as much now. It's more of a time constraint, but for like 10 years, I probably rock climb 3 or 4 days a week. So all over the country. So.
Do you have a favorite sport?
To watch would be football. To participate in rock climbing and running.
Okay, excellent. Rock climbing you mentioned. Do you know who Magnus? I can't say his last name. The Swedish guy.
Yeah.
You know who he is?
Yep.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you watch his recent one where he did the endurance, the Swedish endurance like Ironman?
No, I didn't see that.
Okay, really good one. You should check that out.
Check that out. Put that on the list.
Just because football, favorite team.
Patriots.
Okay. Well, you never know. Okay.
Yeah, you're like, you don't have to delete all on this.
We'll have him back on.
You're right.
And last one I have for you is, I'll say favorite genre of music and perhaps your favorite artist or band.
I feel like it fluctuates right now. I don't really know what the genre would be, like country, folk, and a lot of like Noah Kahan and Zach Bryan, Tyler Childers, like that.
Nice.
Area,
Okay.
So.
All right, I'm kidding. One last one.
All right.
What is the big news coming out of the music world, right? Taylor and Travis are now engaged. So, what's your thought on that? What's your feeling?
I'm happy for them.
Yeah.
I don't know them, but they seem like decent human beings, and hopefully they're good people.
I would agree.
Right.
I would agree.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Matt, for joining us. We really appreciate you taking time, sharing your vast knowledge with us.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Making Money Personal podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, we'd love to hear from you. Send us an email at tcupodcast@trianglecu.org or reach out to us on social media. Thank you to all of our subscribers, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new episodes or money tips. Thanks again for listening, and have a great day. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Granite Edvance. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only and is believed to be materially accurate at the time of this recording. However, information presented is subject to change without notice and should not be construed as a commitment by Granite Edvance.